자, 세 번째 동전은 대성당입니다. 영혼의 밤 대성당이고요. 첫 번째 경기, 두 번째 경기는 진짜 한 경기씩 주고 받았어요. 이게 무슨 말이냐? 첫 번째 경기는 다크 슬래셔 팀이 완벽하게 유리했었는데 실수하는 바람에 경기를 내줬고요. 두 번째 경기 같은 경우 원래 다크 슬래셔 팀이 유리하게 갖고 가는데 워낙 퍼스트 컬처 팀이 워낙 실수를 많이 해가지고 그냥 초반에 이미 승패가 갈라졌어요. 이 두 팀 같은 경우 지금 현재 공략이 약간 달라요. 원래는 쫄하고 같이 중고랑 같이 플레이를 하는데
when you're in that fortified scenario, being able to deal with the mini boss in dual Zac is so important to be able to neutralize quickly here. You do have to deal with the sanguine there, so there's a little bit of a delay between actually pulling dual Zac and getting everything else in with it. And at this point, you know, Dark Slasher is just making sure they're able to kind of push dual Zac down the room as they're clearing out all the extra trash and able to kind of hold him as close as possible here towards you know, the walls. That way, any of the shadow waves there are only going out towards there and not towards just everybody all at once.
지금 퍼스트 컬처 팀은 중고를 안 잡았죠. 중고를 안 잡았고 지금 다크 슬래셔 팀 같은 경우는 중고를 같이 잡고 있죠. 공략이 달라요. 좋습니다. 맞나? 왜 중고가 안 보이지? 퍼스트 컬처 팀은 좀 이상하게 하는데? 실력가 왜 실을 안 하고 꼼꼼을 해가지고 뭐라고 있는 거예요?
Yeah, and at this point, you know,
잘 모르겠네요.
because like you said, it is that percentage. They're making sure they're just having very strong movement going out throughout the rest of this instance. And a lot of time, I believe Parse Culture had already taken care of dual Zac here, so you know they had a much stronger focus on that single target damage to be able to deal with it. And just now, Dark Slashers is clearing it out and being able to get the rest of the trash. And I believe they're just trying to get Edelweiss out of combat, really.
Yeah, I mean, that kill felt like it took forever on dual Zac for Dark Slashers. Both teams now at 13% apiece, no problem. As we see that Sky Step come out of Rev, goes up, grabs some of the trash with the two bats sitting there. Aggro's the Bat Rider as well. Does need to be interrupted. There is a fear cast from this Rider that players have to pay attention to. Getting as much trash together as possible as Parse Culture. Oh, they actually didn't even pull. You lied to me.
I did.
They didn't even pull dual Zac, but they do let him aimlessly by himself run down the hallway. Really, I mean, it just kind of.
What a silly boss.
What a silly boss. He just runs away. They don't even deal with it. Clever by them. And they just let him run by and resume along their day pulling the rest of the trash.
But it does come with a little bit of a timer with it because I believe he does just complete circle all the way around. So they have a little bit of time to be able to kind of get past that. So it looks like they might just be pulling into this little cubby here, deal with all the trash, let dual Zac actually run by and continue doing all of their trash.
이 던전은 퍼스트 컬처 팀이 뽑은 던전입니다. 자기네들만 독하게 헤드가 근데 계속해서 킥을 안 하고 뭐 하는 거지 이거? 이거 알아봐야 되겠네요. 공포물 해서 계속 하면 뭐가 있는 것 같아요. 저는 이 공략을 모르겠어요. 도발을 계속 하는 건가? 뭐지 저거는? 저 뭐야 혼자 실로 혼자 가죠. 실로 혼자 가서 아마 1렙 앞에 가서 기다리고 있을 거예요. 그러면 나머지 팀들이 전멸을 하게 되면은 대부를 받을 거예요.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, of course, skips that they're going to start working on their way through here. And like you said, a lot of times people really try to skip through as much as possible to be able to kind of get around here. So I'm very interested in seeing, you know, how they're going to be able to deal with not only the impacts, because those imps are, of course, having to deal with the explosives there. We've seen teams be able to pull it off, but it is so dangerous because of just the density, the quantity of mobs that you have there, spawning all kinds of explosives at once there. So it looks like, you know, maybe they will not end up actually going through there. But at this point, Dark Slash is just waiting to get the mass raise up. That are going to be skipping themselves just around a lot of the more lethal trash, the more annoying trash to deal with here as they're working on their way towards Agronox's room.
We do have a death come in as well for Parse Culture with this pull. I mean, they pulled those three mobs that are kind of sitting
여기서
halfway
만약에
up the stairwell.
퍼스트 컬처 팀이 이기게 된다면 진짜
frontal slash, just a lot of AoE damage going down, dispels that need to be done as well. And they pulled it all the way upstairs to some of the trash, combining it with the Agronox area. So we do see that death go down. Battle res has been used as a result, but Dark Slasher still has their available as they only deal with that 3-pack solo.
Yeah, and this is one of the more time-consuming packs of trash you have to deal with is when you're going up those stairs, you do have to kind of stop, wait, deal with this trash pack because
두 팀 다 유럽이나 아니면 다른 미국 지역
can just be an absolute nightmare here. So here's where you see Parse Culture really making up for a lot of that lost time here. You're able to see Feral Dogs going into bear form, get those quick moonfires out to be able to start dealing with a
일반적으로
lot
전멸을
of
해서
those
1렘
explosive orbs that
앞에서
are going to be
바로
spawning here,
시작을
getting
하는
everything in, grouped up together,
천천히
be able to
잡아가는
actually
능력이에요.
keep those interrupts coming in, of course, for the tree boss with the ground pound.
Now this
mini boss.
Some of this trash is particularly dangerous with these lashers as well. They do tend to kind of spawn some of the vines and that snap vines grabbing players, pulling them in slowly and doing a pretty heavy dot in the meantime, but they can run out of range and break that bond between the flowers. Parse culture opting to respect the danger of this trash, only pulling 2 of the packs. There are another 2 on the opposite side of this kind of little garden well area before they're able to pull Agronox.
Yep. So at this point, Dark Slashers are making sure they're kind of getting everything in together. Very good grips to be able to get, of course, the succubus kind of away from the
진행은
rest
거의
of the group here.
비슷합니다. 예.
There was quite a bit of
아무리
healing
더
going
잡고
on
안
the bot.
잡고
Instead, we are seeing another death
또
on the
죽었죠.
side of Parse Culture on Kaz.
죽은 거
There.
맞죠?
You need to make sure
데스를
that at this point they don't have any other battle reses left available to them. So you
전발이
kind of
없기
stay
때문에
down
아마
because they
쪼를
did use
잡고
the
나서
invis to
부활을
kind of
해야
skip
돼요.
past a lot of that trash here. And like you mentioned earlier,
실수는요 지금 나와 있는
it's such a pain
팀에서
when your first
컬프팀이
reset,
제일 많이
you
해요.
have to make sure
제일
you're getting
많이 하고
Agronox down.
가장 큰 실수
And whenever you're trying to skip
많이
past
하고
all this other trash, it really puts you in this kind of all-in situation.
또
Parse culture
반면에
looking to
같은
kill some more of this
상대팀도
flower trash to relieve
실수를
chlorophyll
계속
up the
같이
rest
했기
of their
때문에
trash meter right now. They are
폭탄
opting to hang
터지죠.
on to
예,
that, but
폭탄
we see the
터졌죠.
perk prog over from Jason. Dips quite low right now, doesn't die fortunately, but a couple of them really low.
경화의
I mean, a
평동이
wipe here would be
폭탄이기 때문에
absolutely devastating for Parse culture. They
지금
managed to
대성당에서
stabilize,
그렇게 어려운
finish off,
조합이
hopefully
아니에요.
finish off the rest of this pack while
대성당은
babysitting
치명상만
those fell
아니고
explosives.
쉬운
Dark
건데요.
Slashers
되게
looking in a
쉬운
prime
건데요.
position to embark on their journey to pull Agronox in just a moment.
폭군도
The
아니고
journey has begun here for Dark Slashers.
왜냐면은
Equal
대성당은
percentage,
쫄이
in terms of
무섭지가
trash and
않습니다.
deaths
그게
here.
크게 어려운
But the
쪽이
fact that they have to
아니에요.
take care of this
자,
one
다크
last
슬래셔 팀이
flower
먼저
on the
시작을
side of
했고요.
Parse Culture just consumes so much time. And we've seen it a lot of times in boss fights, especially tyrannical ones, where they've kind of
빨리
passed a lot of
전발을 해야
the
되죠.
mechanics
예,
and they
빨리
can still complete the
부활해서 빨리
boss,
시작을 해야
a
돼요.
man down. But when you're actually having to take so much longer losing out on 1 DPS, it's such a pain to be able to deal with. And you're seeing it right now in the fortified instance when they have to deal with this trash and then wait to be able to actually get the res out onto Cass.
Jack, did you just say lethal mechanics on this tree boss? My God, that was excellent. I commend you, good sir. Now for Agronox, we do have 2 waves of flowers that spawn. Some of those lashers that, of course, do fixate 1 player each. If they reach you, they will explode for a substantial amount of damage. Players will oftentimes just slow them, maybe grip them, whatever. Nothing too much to deal with. We do have the increasing damage aura on the group. We see 2 stacks of that. Mushroom now 3 stacks on the tank. Will also get pumped up, but probably the most dangerous part of this fight is really that succulent lasher that just spawned under the boss. It actually melees for a substantial amount more
진짜 잘
damage than the
죽죠.
boss does, and it
아니 뭐
kind of
뭐라고
drops
그러는 게
some
아니라
spooge on the ground, if you will, that you want to
솔직히
avoid. Players
안
often
죽어도
kind
되는
of
구간에서
grip it, stun it, chain
죽어요.
CC it, however they will, to make sure they get rid of it as quickly as possible.
I really don't like the positioning out of Dark Slashers right here to deal with Agronox. When you have to deal
악사가
with all
죽을
of
리가
those
뭐가
lashers
있을까?
going out right here, it really makes it so much more difficult to deal with the explosive orbs that do spawn on the entire opposite side of the room here. You are seeing Parse Culture playing a lot
전발이 없기
closer
때문에 그냥 잡아야
against that
됩니다.
flower bed, but they are already having one of their DPS down here, so it's going to be even harder when they don't actually have any battle reses, and they're about halfway through the boss fight.
Yeah, if they used their battle res early on, just sloppiness on trash.
쫄 딜이 안 되죠. 악사가 없어서
They had
악사가
to
없어서
foreman
쫄
the
딜이
rest
밀릴
of that
거예요.
flower, which took ages, and now they have a 52, remaining 60% actually when this happened on the boss. Once again, with 4, they can't fully
이러면
wipe
다크
unless they
슬래셔
put a
팀이
pylon down,
상당히
but also
여유롭게
probably more time
갈
just
수가 있죠.
foremanning the rest of the boss. So
무리를
this
안
is
하고
Parse
가도
Culture's
돼요.
pick, and it's
무리를
looking,
안 하고
unfortunately,
가도
pretty sloppy for them. They should be able to clean up this, hopefully we'll be able to clean up this boss, we'll see. But Dark Slasher's looking in a much better position right now as they're reaching that 15% mark on Agronox.
Yeah, and even though, I wasn't too fond of their positioning there, and there was a lot of weird times where Dilemma, the Fire Mage, was actually helping out with the explosive orbs, they did very well to be able to deal with all of those lashers and the explosives that were spawning from it. So it is a more odd positioning overall, but it really worked so well here. And Edelweiss did an excellent job to be able to, I was going to say to be able to keep everybody alive, but they are dealing with that succulent lasher that kind of delayed a little bit before it despawned.
Now, fortunately for them, by killing the boss, they
어렵게
did
합니다. 예.
obtain
컬처
the
팀 진짜
checkpoint
어렵게
here,
계속
so anybody who
어렵게
dies can
진행하고
actually
있어요.
just release back in this room, does not get sent all the way
다크
back to the front of the
다크
dungeon.
슬래셔
Parse
팀
Culture's
같은
still
경우는
doing well
이름은
to stay
자꾸
alive
이름은
with
안
that
들리고요.
4-man comp as they chew through the rest of the boss. They
아마
now as well
올라가서
reaching that
다 모을
15%
거예요.
mark on
모을 것
Agronox. But
같습니다.
Jack, now we're starting to move up to that trash that you said was particularly dangerous for Dark Slashers as we get into Thrash Bite,
올라가서 아마
Smash Bite's
거미
room with a
거미랑
lot of
책장의
these
앞에
kind
있는
of
애까지까지 싹
book casters
볼
and the
거예요.
imps.
Yep, and at this point, you know, dealing with all these wildly
그냥
having
밑에
to
것만
watch out
잡네요.
for the
예.
explosives is
어떤
extremely
때문에
important
그러나?
here because it does have the potential of slowing down groups, especially if they don't actually have those optimal compositions to really run
자,
with it.
바닥에
So a lot
책장
of times you're looking
떨어지죠.
towards,
예,
you know, the
책기를
healer,
할
you're looking
겁니다.
towards the tank to be able to help deal with a lot of these explosive orbs. But when you have the extra part of Sanguine going out there, you have the tank responsible for repositioning all the ads to keep them out of the
비용등
Sanguine
때문에 빨리
and having them
태풍이라도
working on
불어줘야 될
dealing
것
with a
같은데.
lot of the explosive orbs. It's so much to kind of deal with and so much to balance when the very positioning that you're trying to go after is controlling the
비용등이
other mobs.
짱나죠. 예.
Certainly don't want those imps to stay in that
쪼리의
Christine
피가 너무
for
빨리
too
자.
long.
핑동
We do
위에서.
see some nice Chaos Novas coming out of Glick as he runs over and stuns those arcane tomes that are casting the arcane mobs. If they were to finish their cast, really well done by them. If you do stun them, it stops their cast.
이걸
And the
모을
books
수
are
있을까요?
essentially useless, as they are in real life, according to you, Jack. So you make sure you get rid of all of them. Now, Rev does move into the middle of the room,
뭐네요.
pulls double pack here. Opts not to
다는
pull the two
몰진 않네요.
scavengers
예.
or the 5 imps on
역시
the far
안전하게
side.
가자. 저라도 올 거지. 안전하게
Taking it
가자.
a bit
가장
slow. We
힘든
have seen some really risky pulls from some of the teams in
그냥
past weeks, pulling the entirety of this room and waiting for Gazerax solo after.
Yeah, at this point, you know, while books are extremely
양쪽을
important, which is why
몰겠죠. 양쪽을
Thrashlight
몰지
must
않나?
be eliminated here.
한쪽만 몰네.
It is very important, like you mentioned, to make sure you're watching out for a lot of this positioning here. And because it is Sanguine, you do have, you know, that extra
지금 펄스 컬처
complication
팀
of
같은 경우도
positioning.
지금
We've seen some
못하고
teams,
있는
for
건 아니에요.
example, pulling in a lot of
보시면
the imps
아시겠지만
into
그나마
that mini
그래도
boss
전멸을 안
into
하고
another eyeball
꾸역꾸역
boss
따라오고
here is
있어요.
a
예,
very,
꾸역꾸역
very
따라오고
big favorite for you,
있는데
Ted. But at this point, you know,
저렇게 하면
not
언젠간
being
기회는
able to
옵니다.
have too much in the
언젠간
way
기회는
of
와요.
you know, manipulating the ads. Are probably just going to have Typhoon and maybe Mass Grip to be able to move them out before.
아마 못한다 해도
you
우리
know,
같은
they
사람보다
die to make sure they're not going to be on anything particular. It just kind of makes sense to kind of pull all the other trash first.
바깥에서 잡겠죠.
Now
피운동이
they
때문에
should pull
바깥에서 잡지
Gazerax kind of
않겠나?
out of the room as they're slowly starting to here, but I would pull it out just a bit more to be safe. You don't want that Sanguini spawning on the ground because although it's not right where Thrashbite is going to spawn, he can charge one of the bookcases, as we do know later, and you don't want him charging right into or anywhere near one of the Sanguine, as it will heal the boss, and having a few percent heal on the boss can be particularly devastating. But they are starting to pull it just a bit to the side. Hopefully that won't be an issue for them. Parse Culture dealing on the right side of the screen, of course, with their first impact leading up to this room in the first place. So a fair bit behind for them, plus they have that one extra death on the board compared to Dark Slashers 3.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, Dark Slashers does have that sizable lead at clearing almost all of this room here. They do need to really watch out for, of course, this focused destruction that is going out. It does deal very, very large amounts of damage here. And the Trank was already used on the side of the device here. So you are seeing Moline going down.
죽었습니다.
I am very
네.
surprised about the positioning, though, because Moline
양궁이
should be able
죽었죠.
to actually max range this going
이거는
past that
실이
40-yard
못
mark.
봤어 준 거죠.
Be able,
아니면
by
생존기를
being in
켰어야
marks and
되는데
to be able to actually stand
아마
away from
생존기를
that and not
아끼려고
get hit,
그랬던 것
take
같아요.
any kind of damage
실이
at
못
all. So
봤어줬어.
I'm not sure if it's just a miscommunication in terms of where the boss or the mini boss was positioned, or just
오래 잡네요
maybe on this
생각보다.
part.
Rather explosive situation happening on Parse Culture side as some of those explosives do go on
킬러가
to finish
탐도해야
off
될
the
시간이
unfortunate
필요할 것
Windwalker
같은데.
Monk yet again.
저게
They do release
탐정나면
and come all the way
광역
back
게임기가
to
계속해서
Agronox's room. They'll release from
복귀를
there.
해야 돼요.
Unfortunately, didn't get one of the stun on the tomes as we see on the right side of the screen. Things are starting to get just a bit out of hand for
아마
Parse Culture
탐을
side.
좀
The
해야 될
Warlock does
거예요.
go down as
탐을
well. They're
좀
kind
해야
of
되지
desperately trying to
않을까?
get out of the room. They have three of those arcane anomalies and Gazerac pulled on the side.
바로
Looking
시작을
pretty
하네요.
grim
예.
for them. Jason does go down. The Blood DK probably going to be a full
아마
team
초반에
wipe
실이
there.
필요했을
A
거라
bit overzealous
생각했겠죠.
in that room, but Thrashbite starting over on Dark Slasher's side, and that Bloodlust is popped too.
And it's so scary for Parse Culture, really, because even though they've wiped to those arcane anomalies, it still takes a long time before they die. So they have to wait to actually get the res and start waiting for them to despawn and actually have the Sanguine puddles. While Dark Slashers is already halfway through, of course, Thrashbite.
또 전멸했어.
So with Thrashbite,
또
don't know
전멸을
you start
했어.
with me, Jack.
또
With Thrashbite now,
전멸을
we
했어.
see this arrow come up, and he'll actually charge into the Sanguine. I really hope he doesn't get any percent. Edelweiss just. You know, we talked
척
about you
문화,
kinda have
그러니까
that
컬처
trait where you
문화가
go into the
제
bookcase
컬처가
and the hitbox of the
보면
boss will
그
oftentimes hit the bookcase prior to hitting the player, which will of course one-shot you if it hits you first, but didn't work out so well there
자,
for Edelweiss.
보십시오.
She does go down, they
보면
use the battle res immediately to get
펄스
her up.
컬처
Deal
팀이
with those two books as
컬처
Thrashbite is
길드가
delivered,
세계
can't read,
속에서
wanna
너무
make sure he's
낮은
having
이유를
a
알
good
수
time.
있는
Those arcane tomes are
알 수 있는
immediately
방법이다
killed,
이렇게
and they book it
알아보기
back to the middle
쉽습니다.
of the room
그러니까
and make sure they're not
자,
hanging around the outsides as
펄스
not to be
컬처
cloaked
팀
by
이
this whirlwind
자체가
weapon.
세계
Yeah,
중에서
5%
몸이 치다고
here,
얘기를 하네요.
Thrashbite regaining his weapon just in time to
die.
Very interested in seeing how they're going to be going through this pull. It does
지금
look like
채팅창에는
because the
그렇게
group is
올라와요.
standing off into the side, they are
펄스
just going
컬처
to have a
팀,
line of sight going out
펄스
here.
컬처
They will let the
길드가
rest of
세계
those impacts, of course,
순위에
just go forward here.
아주 못
Does look like,
미치는
they
세계적인
missed out
그런
on some of the
이름에
scavenger
못
packs, but
미치는 그
also they
정도
missed out on a
팀이라고
lot of the explosives
얘기를
that I was
하는
kind
거예요.
of expecting when those mobs are engaged. you think that the second they do end up
자,
spawning,
이 팀은
you start seeing a lot of
어떻게
explosive orbs, but it has been
이 같은
extremely
자격을
lucky. I don't think we've
얻었습니까라는
seen that.
말도
Yeah, I mean, a bit of
올라와요.
RNG involved. We're not used to seeing that, of course, oftentimes.
펄스
But there's a
컬처 팀에
bit of
대한
RNG
얘기를 하는
involved with
거예요.
when and how many of those orbs spawn. In this case, though, you already saw them kind of pre-line of sighting around the corner.
이유는
So even if
지금
you had 10
꽤
of them spawn on the other
좋은
side of
게
the room,
느껴질 거야.
nothing too dangerous for them.
상대
Not to deal
북미 팀이
with the rather
수준이 너무 낮다
impressive pull
보니까
that Rich hinted to earlier.
유로 팀에서 봤을
Blocking the
때는
games,
야
they don't
북미는
have
진짜
access to a
뻥이다.
lot of CC. We see usually, you know, Ring of Peace coming down. They of course
지금
have the Chaos Nova and
펄스
some
컬처 팀에
slows
대해서
from
사람들이 많은
the
얘기를
two
해요.
of them. They have
수준이 너무
well,
낮다.
actually, they have the
수준이
Chaos
낮다는
Nova.
공식으로
They
얘기를
have
합니다.
binding.
Flame Strike and binding.
Yeah, and binding. So they, I mean, they have a fair bit, but oftentimes the king and the MVP there is really that Ring of Peace, holding the mobs there, plus the
리메이크해라.
AV grip, holding the
리메이크는
mobs there
개개인기
for
해라.
8 seconds.
개개인기 하라고 얘기를
Either way, they opt not to deal with it and deal with the spider trash upstairs. Parse Culture working on
제가
Thrash
봐도
by now, and
솔직히
partially pulled him
말씀드려서
at 92%.
And
펄스
it's
컬처
interesting
팀
at this
같은
point, you know,
경우는 수치 쉽게
they are really just
만듭니다.
playing Dark
그러니까
Slashers this instance just
펄스
as
컬처
if they were going to
팀은
chest it at home, if they were going to be playing
팀이
this regular
그들의
key. We're not
수치스럽게
seeing any
만들고 있다
incredibly
이렇게
fancy
얘기하고 있네요.
strategies out of them, which granted really makes sense because this is not their pick, but the scary thing is with Parse Culture is they're falling
제가 봐도
behind. They've
조금
had these
수준은
wipes, they've had
조금
these simple mistakes
제가 우리가
going
이제
on all
글로벌에서
too
좀
often.
잘한
They're not
팀이다
able to kind of deal with those pokes.
수준인 것
And it
같아요.
does seem like they weren't quite as well prepared as Dark Slashers was for this instance. I mean, Dilemma here is having just a field day when they had those the books coming out that could have spawned the Arcane Anomalies, being able to get the quick Dragon's Breath to be able to interrupt them. They just completely shut those down. Whereas on the other side, you're seeing Parse Culture having to deal with it and getting another death here and going into Thrash Fight.
And they don't have that battle res available either, so just another huge time sink. They'll be able to likely kill this boss. They have more than enough
채팅장에는
cases left, but
이거는
it's going
좀
to take them a while for
유로 쪽이
only
상당히
for them
유리할
alive.
거라서
Dark
계속해서
Slashers now
얘기를
working
하네요.
on the Lasha, particularly dangerous mini boss style mob. We see huge damage coming in from
제가 몇
Moline
시간
right
동안
now.
방송을 했지?
Actually pulls aggro on one of the spiders coming down by accident. Those do apply a rather potent and smelly, might I add, dot on the tank. Now, you can dispel, as we see, of course, Edelweiss doing there, you can dispel them on the tank occasionally, but that does have an 8-second CD.
Yeah, and it was actually quite scary because Edelweiss immediately dispelled Moline, so the tank in Rev actually got up to about 5 stacks, almost 6 stacks very rapidly.
Caps out at 5.
Oh, it does cap it out. Sorry, okay. So
it gets rough at 5.
Yeah, so I mean, he was just yo-yoing really at that point, and as Edelweiss just trying to get that dispel off onto him. So it was just so scary. You are seeing Rev just dipping down very low, playing with fire really as he's just kind of pooling up a huge reserve of runic power to be able to get himself topped off quickly.
And funny you say that, do have a Fire Mage. Nalasha does go down, the ever so dangerous Spider Queen, as they spin around and get ready to leave this room, heading up the stairwell to the last two bosses. There's only a small bit of trash that you'll see them have to complete a bit later. Now, they're at 91%. There's only 4 Fellbats that remain after the third boss, Domitrax, if I'm not mistaken, that definitely don't give 9% trash.
They definitely do not.
So at this point, they either realize it and say, hey, let's deal with the bosses, let's finish Mephistroth off, and then we'll go back into the dungeon and hunt the rest of the trash that we need. Or maybe they haven't realized it. And
컬처 문화가 이길 수 있다고 전적으로
I'm trying to think of
믿는다.
what's going to be
나는
the most optimal path for them to
펄스
kind of
컬처
run over
팀이
towards.
이길 수
Because at
있다고
this point, they
전적으로
have cleared
믿는다.
out all of
말도
the
안 되는
imps
얘기죠.
through Thrash
And the
Fight's
spiders.
and before Thrash Fight's room. I don't believe they actually pulled the second set of spiders right above Thrash Fight's room.
Okay.
So I think that might actually be where they're going to go to get that additional percent.
That could be their saving grace, but all
다크
eyes on
슬래셔 팀은 이제
Domitrax right now, the
3렘을
third boss of the
시작을
dungeon.
했고요.
Spawns portals at 90% and 50%. The ones that he
근데
spawns at 90%,
펄스 컬처
as we'll see
팀이
in just a
나쁜 건
moment
아니에요.
here,
흑마가
aren't as
있겠지만
dangerous.
아마
You do want to
네임플레이
kill
저거
those
한다
portal
그러면
guardians before they finish their
흑마
cast,
팀
else
좀
they will
유리했을
summon a
것
particularly
같은데 지금 이게 막
evil. It's not really a dreadlord. It's kind of like a fire lord. But
It's like a fell lieutenant.
꿀반삼이 경기하는 거
so
보고
you want to make
비교를
sure
하면
to kill those
솔직히
off quickly.
펄스
But
컬처
the
팀
imps that
못하는
they
건
spawn,
아니죠
although
절대로.
seemingly not dangerous, they
정말
actually
잘하는
get
겁니다.
Fellbolts off for about
아마
4 to 5 mil.
한국섭
So
같은
you want to
거
make sure they're
5,000점
interrupted
이상
and that
되는
they're meleeing the
상황인데
tank. No one else do a fair bit of damage considering how
최소
puny they are in
4,000
size.
뭐좀
Domitrax
후반대나
casting his chaotic
중후반대
energy at 100 at a chaotic
근데
100
대회에서는
energy, yes.
솔직히 다른 팀에
Players
비해서
doing well to hide in
솔직히
that middle shield and
잘한다고
getting ready for that
생각하지
50% mark with the second set of portals.
당연히 저거는
Right now, they're
잘하겠죠.
making sure they're having that strong positioning right next to, of course, the Aegis there, so that when the chaotic energy does go out, actually interesting. I think they are going to have a perfect. There it is. Actually, they are forcing the transition early. They're not going to be waiting for the chaotic energy. And like you said, this is usually something that's not as common that they're going to be doing here, because right in the middle, of course, of this phase, you're having the chaotic energy going off. So Rev is actually just sitting in there, popping defensives to make sure that none of those ads are coming near. And you're also seeing the binding shot going down by Moline to make sure that if
자, 어그리
any
튀어서
of the
이제
Shavara do come
아
out, that they
죽었어요.
will stand far
헤드가
away
죽었어.
here.
헤드가.
Edelweiss going down again. The last battle res being utilized. They have probably about a minute before the next one will be back available to them. But at this point, they did a very very well to make sure that they're getting all of the Shivara tightly packed in together and annihilated.
Yeah, the Shivara do an AoE Shadow Whirl that punt players around them away, so you don't want one of those coming into the shield as the players
헤드가
are trying
저렇게
to
딜을 안 해도
They
되는데.
do well there. Rev, of course, stays on the outside to maintain that aggro. Blood DKs do well with that spike magic damage, popping that Vamp Blood, increasing the size of that anti-magic shield, popping that and easily surviving that explosion from the boss, especially in this fortified, non-tyrannical setting. But, you know, a bit of sloppiness again. They do have that cauterized proc on Dilemma on the Fire Mage. We do see that
아니 3렘까지 다크 슬래셔 팀이 이긴다면 이제 가망은 없습니다. 가망은 이제 펄스 컬처 팀은 이제
now starting to move up the stairwell to where Dark Slashers is currently.
Yeah, and at this point, Dark Slashers is a full boss ahead. They're still, Parse Culture still is just about to start the RP event. They're having the druid running up the stairs.
사람들이
That
뭐라고
way
그러진
he will be
않아요.
able to get that going
아까는
here.
뭐 진짜 뭐
And hopefully this is, you know, the moment where
욕하듯이
Dark
저런
Slashers is
수준의
able
팀이
to
어떻게
realize
이까지 왔냐 이런
missing out on that additional trash percentage if they haven't already.
개인적인 거
And if they
생각이고요.
haven't already, they're kind of rewinding and able to kind of look
실력자는
at,
당연히
hey, where are we
잘하는
getting that
팀이 있으면
extra
못하는
trash
팀이 있는
percentage?
거고.
Because they are a full boss ahead. They are going to be able to have, you know,
펄스
almost
컬처
all
팀
the trash
경기 쭉 보시면
percentage at this
아시겠지만
point here.
꽤
But it's
많은
very
개수를
important, you know, the
계속해서
second that
내면서
they are able to
올라와요.
take down Mephistrat to be able to start booking it down the stairs and find some kind of trash that'll give them percent.
Yeah, depending on how the next two bosses play out for Parse Culture and just how well Dark Slashers performs on Mephistrat, I mean, this could be, a bit of a stretch, but it could be Parse Culture's saving grace. They're already done with their trash. They're at 96% now. They'll get the remaining 4% from the bats, the ones that Dark Slashers just killed. Dark Slashers has to deal with Mephistrat, which starts in phase 1 here for 40 seconds. Prime time for Bloodlust, which unfortunately they don't have available to them. But they are going to get as much damage in as they can. Mephistrat is going to go off into his second phase, where the tank usually will pick up that Aegis, that shield, and protect Illidan in the middle of the room from Mephistrat's shadows that are casting huge purple balls at Illidan's face. Want to make sure none of them are soaked by Illidan, else the phase will extend by a few seconds, something that I'm sure Parse
아니
Culture would love.
펄스 컬처 팀 또 보면
Unfortunately for them,
아슬아슬해요.
Rev's favorite game is soccer, and he is an incredible goalie. So I do not think that's going to be too much of a problem there for him. At this point, I think it really will start
솔직히
going into just an
조합은
attrition
펄스
battle.
컬처 팀이 더
Making
좋아요.
sure,
조합은
Edelweiss is
조합을
going to be able to
따지자면
keep everybody topped off. The burst damage that comes out from those spires is extremely high there.
빨리 실을 채워야
That's
되죠.
one of the things
실을
you want to
채워야
see is, you
됩니다.
know, I'm not too interested in seeing huge damage going out for Edelweiss.
헤드니,
They do have one battle res left available to them, but it's so important
딜할
to make sure
시간
they
아니고
don't actually
실을
have to
해야죠.
use that
실을
if they
딜을 하고
don't have
있어.
to here. So at this point, what I'm really looking for is just strong, constant healing onto this group, making sure people are staying spread, avoiding any of the spit that comes out from the bat going overhead right there. At this point, making sure they're not extending this phase, because
재생 엄청나게
if they're
나타나네요.
playing it cleanly, if they're playing it correctly, they will be able to get this down and then get that final trash percentage they desperately need.
Good view here from the observers as we see just how well Rev ends up playing goalie there, blocking all of those orbs onto Illidan. Mephistrat's restarting phase 1, which of course is a longer version of the pull at the start, because there he starts with 50 or 60 energy already. Here he will start with 0 energy. Should be able to easily kill the boss within this time frame. We're always keeping an eye on Parse Culture. They've already dealt with 2 of the portals. We see 1 left over, Shivar on the side there, but Domitrak's already at 25%. No deaths there to speak on that fight specifically for Parse Culture, so they're shaping up well. But Mephistrat already at 30% here, Jack. After this, they're going to have to just head as quickly as they can downstairs all the way. I guess those 2 spiders would be enough all the way past where Nalasha was before they killed her and deal with those last 2 spiders.
Yeah, and that's gonna, looks like it's going to be the percent they need. You are seeing Dilemma going down. That's the last battle res they have available to them. 10 seconds left on Bloodlust going out.
바닥을 못
At
편
this point,
거죠.
I just want to
바닥을
see
못
raw
편 거예요.
healing coming out, because they do have to deal with another set of spires.
랜드 하나 차이기 때문에
Making sure
이대로 하면
everyone is
다크
playing
슬래셔
as
팀
defensively as possible here. 7% left, of course, on Mephistrat. They just need to make sure they're burning this down, avoiding the phase.
한번 생각해도 유럽 팀하고는 경기 내용이 상당히 달라요.
downstairs, find that
유럽
last person
팀하고는
trash
유럽
percentage
팀은
they're needing
진짜
here. So
한
they
팀당
really have to
팀들이
watch out for these spires that they
보통 한
do
몇
run
초
into,
차이로
because
지고 이기고 가는 게 되게 많은데
this is something you really you have to
지금
make sure
퍼센트가 3% 모자리죠. 이게
Boom
뭐야?
goes the dynamite.
anytime you're
3%
completing
모자라요.
resistance and those spires are
이거 놓치고
still
보면
up,
3%
they're still
모자릅니다.
so lethal
뛰어내려야
there.
되죠.
And at this point, they're kind
뛰어내려야
of just
되고요.
keeping an eye on like where is that extra trash percentage. I do believe they've already
3%가
dropped
모자라요.
down,
3%가.
and they're still going
어디서
all the
못
way
잡은 거지?
downstairs,
3%가
skipping past
모자리는데.
They actually did kill the spiders that you
Okay.
thought were up, so they have to run all
그래도
the way
고작
past
그래봤자
Thrashbite's
뭐
room,
한 번만
which they're
못
doing right
넘기니까
now.
크게
So they have to go all the way down the
달라지는
winding
거 없어요.
stairs,
예.
all
크게
the way
달라지는
past
건
his
없어요.
room, and all the way near Agronox's room, where finally they find the remaining trash they need.
블러드
And they
튀고
obviously
잡는 거야?
had Bloodlust. We see it on 4 of the members, of course, not on the mage, which is why you're
랜드
seeing
하나 차이가
that
나기 때문에
cooldown
이건
left over.
이건
That's only the
3%면
mage's
뭐 두
cooldown.
마리만
The
세
other
마리만
4
잡으면
members get Bloodlust, and
네
they're rapidly
마리?
trying to finish
한
off
무리만
2
잡으면
more
돼요.
mobs to get
무리만
their
잡으면
last 3%. whilst Parse Culture has already started on Mephistroph, but at this point it's got to be too little too late, Jack.
Yeah, and they get the 99%. They just need to kill one individual thing, and they've got it. Dark Slashers
끝났죠. 예, 끝났습니다.
finishing up the
목표는
instance
도망갈
and
거예요.
sealing
예.
the series.
세기는
2-1 with
100%가
the
되면
reverse sweep.
목표를
Again,
공격을 안 합니다.
Only it was Arcade.
결국은 이제 준결승전 가게 됐습니다. 준결승 가게 되는
Well,
팀은
the thing
자꾸
is with
스트레스
this squad is they've been able